4 days, zero work. That's been the story of Parliament this week. Today, the Lok Sabha was adjourned 6 seconds, exactly 6 seconds after proceedings began. Just 6 seconds. The government is almost sounding like a broken record, making the same demand again and again, that Rahul Gandhi should apologise. The government says his comments on Indian democracy in London were an insult to the country, that Rahul Gandhi was asking for foreign intervention in India. Law Minister Kiren Rijiju made the same claim today as well. So, Rahul, who was in Parliament, said, "Let me speak and clarify on the floor of the House. It's my right," he says, "to speak on the floor of the House. If the BJP and the government allows it, it'll be a true test of democracy."
ये सारा उन्होंने देश के खिलाफ विदेश के धरती में जाकर के झूठ बोला, उसके लिए माफ़ी मांगना होगा और ये हम अपना दायित्व निभा रहे हैं। और आप सब भी मैं फिर से अनुरोध करता हूं कि एक बात और कुछ समय के लिए ये छोड़िए कि हम मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है या किसी पार्टी के कि आप मीडिया के हैं। एक बार हम लोग एक भारतीय होने के नाते भारत को बदनाम करने वाला का खिलाफ में सबको आवाज उठाना चाहिए।
Well, this time Rahul Gandhi was in Parliament when the entire drama unfolded. He had returned from London and was ready to speak in the Lok Sabha. Just one problem though, he never got the opportunity. The government kept insisting on an apology while the opposition kept raising the Adani-Hindenburg issue. In the end, both houses were adjourned for the day. Rahul Gandhi then met the Lok Sabha Speaker and requested for an opportunity to speak tomorrow. But Mr. Gandhi says the Speaker was non-committal. In a press conference later in the day, Rahul Gandhi accused the government of creating a distraction to dodge the Adani issue. He says if Indian democracy is indeed functioning, he should be allowed to speak in Parliament to put his point of view and his version of the story in front of the House. Listen in.
I'm a member of Parliament, and as the allegation has been made in Parliament by 4 ministers, it is my right to have the opportunity. It's my democratic right. So if Indian democracy was functioning, I would be able to say my piece in Parliament. So,
please,
let me speak.
Please let him finish.
So actually what you are seeing is a test of Indian democracy. After 4 leaders of the BJP have made an allegation about a member of Parliament, is that member of Parliament going to be given the same space that those 4 ministers have been given?
Will Rahul Gandhi be allowed to speak on the floor of the House tomorrow? We'll just have to wait and watch. Manish Tewari is joining us on the broadcast. He's a Congress MP of the Lok Sabha. Mr. Tewari, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. Good to have you on the show. Let's start with Rahul Gandhi and his press conference before I go to other questions. In your view, do you think he'll be allowed to speak tomorrow? He says the speaker was non-committal.
See, there's a larger issue which is involved here. And the larger issue is the privileges of members of Parliament, both on the floor of the House and outside Parliament. Article 105 was especially engrafted into the Constitution of India to give members of Parliament the unfettered right to speak or articulate on issues, whatever they consider appropriate. So therefore, that right is neither circumscribed nor is it fettered. And if essentially somebody wants to qualify it as free fall of information, so yes, the makers of the Indian Constitution actually wanted a free fall of information to take place on the floor of the House. Then there are other uncodified rights in Article 105(4), which are synchronous with the rights available to members of the House of Commons. So that's why for the past 2 days, I have been giving an adjournment notice that, all right, if you have a difficulty with what Mr. Gandhi had said, we also have a difficulty with a lot which has been said over the years. So let there be a discussion on the floor of the House with regard to what are the prerogatives, privileges available to members of Parliament, both inside the House and outside. And the government will not agree.
Mr. Tewari, that was actually my second question to you, because your tweet that you put 2 days ago was fairly interesting. You say, we may have reached a stage in the evolution of our great republic that we may soon require a debate on the freedom of speech and expression in Parliament itself. Now, the opposition parties, along with the Congress party, have been accusing the government of switching off the mics of opposition leaders. Why is that accusation being made, given that there has been hangama from both sides, from the opposition side and from the side of the government as well?
Well, unfortunately, it is not episodical. It has been the experience of many people who sit on the opposition benches, yours truly included, that when things which are uncomfortable for the government are articulated, mics do get switched off. That's a reality. It's unfortunate. But that is what has happened repeatedly ad nauseum over the past 3.5 years. And so, therefore, if that fact is brought by a member of parliament to the attention of the country, or even to the attention of the House, I don't see as to why such serious umbrage needs to be taken. And that's why, to go back to the earlier point I was making, the adjournment notice that I have given is predicated on that tweet which you read out, that it's high time that we had a detailed discussion on what really are the privileges of MPs. If they do not have the right to even speak freely in Parliament, then why have a Parliament in the first place at all? In fact, the makers of the Indian Constitution went so far as to even indemnify the media from libel. For example, if I'm speaking something which is incorrect, which is factually incorrect in Parliament, and you report it, you are indemnified by law that no the defamation proceedings will lie against you. And the reason why this was done was to ensure that complete and total candor, even if it verges on something being factually incorrect, is permitted, because that is how the truth and the whole truth and all sides of the truth and all shades of the truth would come out. I think those people who
Mr. Tewari,
are objecting to this possibly have not read the debates of the Constituent Assembly with regard to Article 105. They make absolutely fascinating reading. And I would like to urge the ministers, who've been actually disrupting Parliament, and this is a first in itself, that you have the Treasury benches disrupting Parliament, to go and read those Constituent Assembly debates as to what exactly did the founders have in mind when they put Article 105 into the Constitution.
But Mr. Tewari, the taxpayer spends a hell lot of money for Parliament to function, 2.5 lakh rupees per minute. What is the government's interest in stalling Parliament in the way it has been stalled for the last 4 days?
Well, essentially, I think they are taking late Mr. Arun Jaitley's advice that disruption is a legitimate parliamentary tactic to another level altogether. You may recall that in the November of 2010, when the BJP wiped out an entire session of Parliament and followed that up with repeated disruptions all the way till 2014, when a version of this question was asked to late Mr. Arun Jaitley, who was leader of the House, leader of the opposition in the Raj Sabha, he very glibly said that disruption is a legitimate parliamentary tactic. And I think the Treasury benches seems to have taken that to heart, and they've forgotten that they are no longer on the opposition benches, but they're actually the government.
But Mr. Tewari, the argument that the BJP and the government are making is, why is the opposition demanding for a JPC when the matter is already in court? The Supreme Court is already looking at it. What's the point of having a JPC? Why do all this hangama over a JPC when the matter is being looked into?
So therefore, you ask a very interesting question. And let me take you back to 1992 when the Harshad Mehta scandal broke out. At that point in time, the courts were seized of the Harshad Mehta affair. But Parliament, in its wisdom, constituted a joint parliamentary committee to look at the legal, regulatory, and policy issues. And the Security and Exchange Board of India Act, the SEBI Act, was actually a result of of that JPC. Then in 2001, when the lawfare Ketan Parekh took place, courts were seized of that particular matter also. But Parliament, in its wisdom, constituted a joint parliamentary committee, which gave very constructive recommendations, which helped strengthen the regulation of capital markets. Then again, in 2010, Supreme Court was seized of the 2G matter. In fact, not only the Supreme Court, even the trial court was seized of the 2G matter, and some people who were wrongly accused and later acquitted were in the custody of the CBI at that particular point in time. But Parliament, in its wisdom, decided to constitute a joint parliamentary committee which looked into the entire allocation and pricing of telecom licenses from 1994 all the way till 2010. The reason why this happened is because the Supreme Court's remit operates in a particular field. That is with regard to whether there's criminality, whether any aberrations have taken place with regard to superintendents. But Parliament operates in a different domain altogether. Parliament exercises superintendence over the regulatory mechanisms which govern capital markets and your broader banking universe. Parliament also is the final arbiter of policy. So under those circumstances, merely to argue that because the court is seized of a matter, Parliament should not be looking at it. I think people either are ignorant about past precedents or do not understand as to what is the role of courts and what is the role of Parliament.
Okay, Mr. Tewari, good to chat with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now. Thank you very much indeed. Now, since all of this ruckus is about Rahul Gandhi's speech in London, let's look at what exactly he said. Has he said anything where he needs to apologize? You can judge for yourself. Mr. Gandhi addressed a couple of events in London. He spoke at his alma mater in Cambridge. He also participated in media interactions and spoke at the Chatham House. Now, the BJP claims Rahul Gandhi defamed India and sought foreign intervention in these speeches. Let's put that claim to test. We have compiled the key parts of Mr. Rahul Gandhi's speech in London. Listen in.
If Indian democracy collapses, in my view, democracy on the planet suffers a very serious, possibly fatal blow. So, it's important for you too. It's not just important for us. We'll deal with our problem. But you must be aware that this problem is going to play out at a global scale. It's not just going to play out in India. First of all, it's our problem, right? It's an internal problem. It's an Indian problem. And the solution is going to come from inside. It's not going to come from outside.
So the surprising thing is that the so-called defenders of democracy, which are the United States, European countries, seem to just be oblivious that a huge chunk of the democratic model has come undone.
Now, to be clear, there is nothing new in these allegations. Rahul Gandhi has said the same things in India as well. As for the comments on democracy, what else do you expect? Does the government really expect an opposition leader to go abroad and praise the Prime Minister or talk about the weather? The Congress has consistently accused the BJP of undermining institutions and agencies. Rahul Gandhi only repeated those charges in London. Now, coming to the foreign intervention part. Mr. Gandhi clearly said these problems were India's internal issues and the solutions will also come from inside India. How does that suggest foreign intervention? If anything, he's asking foreign powers to stay away from meddling in India and India's democracy. Now, what Rahul Gandhi said was not defamatory or insulting to Indian democracy. But this everyday chaos and adjournments in Parliament are most definitely an insult to a great democracy, not to suggest and not to say the amount of money that we are wasting every day. As I said, 2.5 lakh rupees per minute every day that the Parliament doesn't run. Mukesh Tyagi of the BJP is joining us on the broadcast. Sujata Paul is the Congress spokesperson and Madhavan Narayan is a senior journalist. I think I should start with Mukesh ji. Mukesh ji, good evening. Good to have you on the show. कल राहुल गांधी को बात करने देंगे या नहीं करने देंगे? He is saying it's a test of democracy. This is the true test of democracy, where everyone has a voice and everyone has the freedom to voice their opinion. Tomorrow, I want to come to Parliament and tell the country what I said in London and why I don't need to apologize. Will the BJP and the government not even give him that opportunity? And if you don't, then obviously people will say, and this country will say, that the BJP is muzzling the voice of the opposition.
Shreya, good evening to you. You know, this matter has been going on for quite some time. Mr. Rahul Gandhi has not made this statement here. He made such a statement in Singapore as well. When economists asked him why the per capita income was lower, he was completely speechless. Now, he has been talking about the democracy for so long time. I think the most undemocratic inheritance which he got during emergency, the darkest saga in the history, where fundamental rights were suspended, maintenance of Internal Security Act, and his father said, "Jab ped girta hai, to zameen hilti hai." Now, these kind of the democratic traditions he belongs to, and he has got the audacity to malign India's image in a foreign soil in his alma mater. I think it was more like listening, learning to listen.
That is up to interpretation. Dekho, whether he defamed India on foreign soil is up to interpretation. My interpretation is he didn't. He doesn't need to apologize. Your interpretation is he did. He needs to apologize. That is okay. Both of us are entitled to our own opinions. After all, we are a democracy. But Mukesh ji, सवाल तो मैंने आपसे कुछ और पूछा. Simple सवाल है, जवाब नहीं दिया आपने. Will he be allowed to speak in Parliament tomorrow or not? Because if he's not allowed, because he wasn't allowed today, if he's not allowed, it means that the government wants to muzzle the voice of the opposition. And if you do that, that's muzzling the voice of democracy.
Absolutely not. I don't agree with you. The government has given, government is completely inclined to give him full opportunity, but the kind of preposterous speeches he makes in the parliament, he came out with one poster with Mr. Modi sitting in the plane of Adani. That was his conclusive and clinching evidence against, nexus between Prime Minister Modi and Adani. So he comes out with such a childish kind of a defense or offense, whatever you may call. Look at it. It's not a rocket science to understand how he said defenders of democracy are oblivious. Means he wants them to interfere in our democracy. Look at the democracy in Pakistan. What kind of democracy is there?
No.
Is he trying to compare us with a banana republic? That there is no democracy? He has moved 4,000 kilometers.
Where has he said that? Mukesh ji, now.
No, I think
Mukesh ji, where has he compared Indian democracy to Pakistan's democracy?
No. I'm trying to say that he's trying to equate with that. There is no democracy. What happens in Europe if the democracy disappears? He's making Union of States corollary, which is a reflection of a Khalistani separatist also. He's also talking about Union of States. So he's trying to say there has to be dialogue between the states. He's trying to create so many fault lines with a very organic and very homogeneous democracy in the country. He's trying to create an interstate division. What is happening to Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and all the states, there's no democracy. So I think Rahul Gandhi has lost complete credibility. He may be sounding extremely brilliant in his speeches in Cambridge and all, but I think his every speech has been anti-India, and no wonder he's reflecting some kind of a colonial mindsets, which is also reflection by the left-driven journalism, right from the Washington Post to New York Times to Guardian.
Okay, Sujata, would you want to come in here?
Yes, please. First of all, the BJP
सब कुछ नहीं लाने की जरूरत.
let's
BBC बाद में बात करेंगे. Let's just stick to this.
Yes, It's very strange that the BJP spokesperson is talking about the constitution. I don't think he's read Article 1 of the constitution. If he reads it, he'll come to know that India is a union of states and territories. So I would request him to go and read up before he comes on a debate. Secondly, when you talk about Rahul Gandhi has said nothing wrong. I'm sitting in India and I do say again that democracy as it is at its worst. And because the BJP has just, spoken about the emergency, that means their defense is indefensible because we all agree that it wasn't right. So what is he talking about? We have already spoken about it in the parliament, apologized for it, and so on and so forth. But the fact is that if Rahul Gandhi is speaking today, he's speaking for the nation. And if democracy in India is hit, then democracy across the world, which Rahul Gandhi had also mentioned, is at stake today. And if we are hit, then the world's democracy is going to suffer. And of course, the Bharatiya Janata Party, which believes in one nation, one leader, one party, and so on and so forth, would want democracy to be struck down. For all the events that the Prime Minister has organized abroad, these are all organized programs. Here, Rahul Gandhi is being invited to the UK Parliament. And when he is invited there, this is going to be a problem. But the point is, the A of Adani, the C of China, and in between, the B of Bhrashtachar. That is what the point is, and we need answers to that. If a JPC cannot be constituted, why? Unless the JPC is constituted, how will the government be held accountable? The BJP will have to answer that. The point that Rahul Gandhi is making is absolutely correct. And the way his remarks were expunged show that democracy is being hit. His voice is being suppressed. And why is it? The BJP needs to answer.
The
Tomorrow,
government
if democracy is not at stake, will you let him speak? That is the simple question.
That is the question, and that question has not been answered by Mukesh Tyagi. And I don't want to put you in a spot because I know that it's not you who will decide whether Rahul Gandhi is allowed to speak or not. It is the speaker, and Rahul says the speaker was non-committal. Can I give Mr. Madhavan Narayan in? Mr. Madhavan Narayan, this is an interesting fight. एक रुक जाइए मुकेश जी. अच्छा चलिए बोलिए, one line बोलिए.
मैं ये कह रहा हूँ श्रेया जी कि जिस प्रकार के वक्तव्य राहुल गांधी जी देते हैं और जिस प्रकार से इन्होंने हमारे भारत की गरिमा को धूमिल किया है, क्या वो माफी नहीं मांग सकते? उन्होंने हिंदुस्तान को गाली निकाली एक तरीके से. He should be tried for the treason as a matter of fact.
अरे कहाँ निकाली भाई गाली?
Making this statement again and again.
कहाँ निकाली भाई गाली?
Institutions like Supreme Court, judiciary.
भारत में पैदा होना
आप देख लीजिए.
Who's undermining institutions? Mukesh ji, who's undermining institutions? Rahul Gandhi or the BJP? अच्छा चलिए. I'm afraid your audio is not very clear. I think you're traveling as well. So your audio is not very clear. Can I just ask the two politicians on the panel to sort of just take a minute so that I can get in Madhavan Narayan in? Mr. Madhavan Narayan, it seems that the government and the opposition are very well poised against each other. This is a battle between equals, at least that is how it's playing out to be. If one has Rahul Maafi Mango, the other one has Sarkar JPC Lao. And both are evenly poised.
Shreya, let me begin on a lighter note by saying parliamentary democracy we think is like cricket, but we in India have converted it into kabaddi now. Okay, so when in kabaddi, all sorts of rules are broken. So the point is, I want to ask whether the A for apology is a way to divert attention from A for Adani, which is one real politic question we have to keep in mind, because sometimes the noise diverts attention from the voice. That is one thing. But that apart, there are issues related to JPC. I have seen the Bofors scandal having giving rise to a JPC, although it was stage managed. Then the Harshad Mehta scam that Manish Tewari mentioned. So there is a legitimate demand for JPC. And one point I want to add is, you say that the Supreme Court has already ordered a panel on the issue. But the key point to remember is Supreme Court has restricted itself to the market and the stock market regulation aspect, whereas there are aspects related to crony capitalism, award of contracts, foreign exchange regulation under ET, all that is also part of it. And to that extent, the parliament needs to go beyond the brief of what Supreme Court has spoken about, on which Mr. Tewari elaborated very well. But the deeper question today, Shreya, is of democracy and parliamentary procedures. When you talk about equally poised, it's an equality of noise. It's our job in the media to actually, maybe you should start a 5-minute program every day on constitutional and parliamentary procedures to educate new generation of Indians, because they will end up confusing noise and disruption to be parliament, whereas you yourself mentioned 2.5 lakh rupees are being spent every minute. So we need to educate ourselves on the history of the Indian parliament and the procedures. And I myself know for sure, because I've covered many parliamentary sessions, that the sense of the house is important. There is another golden rule of parliament, that you will not say anything against somebody without that person being able to defend himself in parliament. And at least for the sake of defending himself, Mr. Rahul Gandhi should be allowed to speak in parliament. The other issue is, we are living in the age of YouTube and social media. So what is the big deal in somebody saying something abroad? And Mr. Gandhi chose very carefully chosen words, in which his exact words were, a large chunk of democracy has come off. So we need to ask, what does he mean by the chunk? Is he talking about the weaponization of CBI and ED and other law enforcement agencies? Is he talking about the fact that parliament has become a forum for disruption rather than discussion? These are issues that are legitimately needed to be discussed, not only in parliament, but also outside parliament, including media and other fora. So as for the issues of whether he spoke about in the foreign soil or not, this is not something new at all in India. I think it was Mr. Modi who spoke about Ab ki baar Trump ki sarkar, and Mr. Subhash Chandra Bose campaigned against the British government with Germans, and Subramaniam Swamy was during emergency campaigning abroad, outside India. So there are issues which are of constant discussion, because Nehru, in fact, supported the Spanish Civil War against General Franco. Therefore, democracy is a matter of value. It's an ethical value in the name of, and when Mr. Modi in G20 fora talks about India as a cradle of democracy, there is a case for a reality check on whether India is walking the talk. And therefore, why don't we generally make it a healthy discussion on what constitutes freedom, what are the institutions of democracy, and whether it should go beyond electoral democracy. In fact, I often like to say these days that India is an electoral democracy, but it is less of a cultural democracy now, because cultural democracy is also about procedures, institutions, and attitudes. Whether you're talking about cartoonists, whether you're talking about media, whether you're talking about the use of law enforcement agencies, whether you're talking about the film industry and artistic freedom, all this is part of a democratic culture. So all these issues are tying in. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi, in fact, I'm surprised. Thanks for showing, Shreya, the exact words that Rahul Gandhi spoke, because I was so confused by the noise that even I started believing in what the ruling party was saying. He has chosen his words very carefully, and that is a very careful word.
Very carefully,
his forum, as far as his forum is concerned, we are living in the age of social media. Nothing can be hid. So sometimes I think that the ruling party is living in the past. This is not ancient Bharat. This is modern India. And therefore, you have to understand that modern institutions function differently. This is not a Raja with the talwar standing in front of you and saying, Jai Bharat. This is about a completely different idea of institutions: legislature, executive, judiciary, media, citizens' expression. This is a bottom-led democracy, which is not a top-down democracy. We have to call for a new way of looking at things. I hope you got that.
So that's my request to our viewers as well. That's my request to all our viewers as well. We are a 1-hour show. I possibly cannot put out all of Rahul Gandhi's quotes on air, but these are, there is a press interaction, there is a speech as well. Why don't you go listen to it yourselves? And if you think Rahul Gandhi has said something that is defamatory to India and he needs to apologize for it, so be it. But I'd say, make up your own mind. Don't listen to the politicians. Make up your own mind. We leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much, all three of you. Good of you to have joined us this evening. I'm slipping into a quick break. There's more on the other side. Do stay with us.